Welcome back everyone to the 4th episode in the Minecraft Ideas Academy series. Each video will cover a different aspect of game design that is specific to suggestions and vanilla style mods. Today I'm joined by Moesh, a developer at Mojang Studios. Tell us a bit about yourself, Moesh.
Hey, thanks for having me. My name is Matthew Dryden, or Moesh, as most people know me. I work at Mojang Studios in Stockholm. My current role is a QA specialist on the Minecraft Java Edition team. I work within the vanilla team, and I help the developers kind of do their first pass on feedback before they send it out to the community. I help manage bugs and make sure that they get in front of the right eyes.
Nice.
Before that, in 2016, thank you, I joined Mojang as a vendor, and then in 2017 I was picked up as a full-time employee. And my main project there was helping launch the Minecraft Marketplace, which is where we sell all of the third-party DLC and first-party DLC, of course. And it was really nice to be able to bring in a community that I care so much about. Particularly the Minecraft mapmaking community. Their creativity is just so lovely, and the stuff they do with Minecraft is extensive, expansive, vast. It's a vast, deep ocean of every kind of play. It's amazing.
Nice, yeah. I understand you've also got a background in level design. How did that start out for you?
Thanks. Yeah, I do have a background in level design. In 1998, I'm 35 now. Geez, in 1998, yeah, I know. I used to be a young boy, and now I'm slightly older. I played Quake 2 and Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight, and those two games were the first games I started making levels in. Now Quake 2 has a brush-based level maker, which is to say you can draw a box and draw another box and put those boxes together and make a room, and then make another room after that, and so on and so forth. In Dark Forces 2, you carved out a box in negative space. So everything was solid to start with, and then you would draw where you wanted it to be open air, and then draw another place where you wanted it to be open air. So you're working from the inside out, which was always a very interesting concept for me. Dark Forces 2 has another special gimmick where you can attach custom scripting to the map that you're making. So if you had a sequence, like a narrative sequence or a music that you wanted to play, or special effects you wanted to give a player, you could write those all custom and attach them to the map. You might be seeing a little bit of groundwork for where we end up with in Minecraft. From there, I became a mod developer in around 2006. I made a mod for Half-Life 2 called Modular Combat. And sometime around 2013, I returned to Minecraft to level design and made Calamity, which was a take on a popular PvP map called Revolution. Now, Revolution was a very popular 2-lane attack defense map. These are all very antiquated terms at this point. I would be surprised if a good deal of people even remember what these maps are. But this one is a really interesting bit because it used Minecraft's survival mechanics to create a competitive format for the game. So it didn't build on top of Minecraft. It used the mechanics and worked with it to say, yes, this would be really cool if we had this much resources here and this much here and this much space between things, and you can't have sightlines here and there. It's a level designer's dream in Minecraft. Like, you don't have to compile. You don't have to worry about lighting, like bringing mobs out. You can just make a hallway by placing down a few blocks, and that is magical. So from there, I made Calamity, and then I joined the VoxelBox. In the VoxelBox, we made a few narrative-driven experience and multiplayer experiences that I'm really proud of. One of those was the Genius Machine. That was a very short jam map where we featured off how you could do narration technology back in, oh my God, probably 2014, 2015, far before behavior packs, far before functions. We had redstone and command blocks and a really long line of sequencing to make a villager head nod up and down. We took a giant and retextured it to look like a giant computer head. fully voice acted, really small map, but it had a lot of impact on where you could go with Minecraft. After that, Mukluk Lodge was a multiplayer thing that was more of like a theme park playground. And I think we kind of set the stage with that for how much theme park style projects like open world, go wherever you want and experience the story kind of non-survival games that you might see on the marketplace now. I firmly believe we kind of kicked that off with Mukluk Lodge. And then after that, we did a lot of freelancing for the Tate Museum, for the Boston Smithsonian, for universities, for YouTubers. We made 100 Ways to Die for Sunday. And I think that's about as long-winded as an intro can get. I bet you're a little sweating over there, aren't you, Kevin?
Oh, I'm just trying to think about what to respond to first, to be honest.
Let's take it bit by bit.
Yeah, so I can definitely see how the your original projects kind of transferred to Minecraft, because Minecraft is very modifiable. It's quite cool how you're doing all that old school stuff with giants and redstone and villages. I remember
Right.
I had a old I think it was a redstone one of the old official redstone manuals I used to have, and they showcase stuff like that, like an elevator or this zombie map where you got these zombies walking towards you, and they're led by villagers underground using wiggly minecarts so that the zombies don't lose interest. Like all those cool technologies, real old school stuff.
I think it's so interesting that you bring up that exact point. It's so important. And it's a bit of a lost art form, generally speaking. If you're first entering map making, you wouldn't ever think to nowadays use villagers and minecarts and zombies in that way. The current method is using like a lead and a follow behaviors on Bedrock. And on Java, you can teleport along the ground pretty competently. I've lost my way as far as the bleeding edge of what NPC technology is doing on Minecraft Java Edition, but I'm certain it's a much better quality of life than what we had back then.
Yeah, I bet. I guess some of the jank that you used to work with is charming. I remember I think YouTuber Simply Sark made a video a while back wondering if Skulk could resurrect like redstone style map making, because Skulk sensors specifically, because they're able to work with pretty much a completely new system, that being vibrations. And I've played a few adventure maps back in the I think 2013. I can't remember what it was called, but all the zombies had leaves on their heads, and to get to the next bit, you had a boss that dropped a music disc, and you put it in the jukebox, and then the jukebox activates the next door.
It's like Herobrine's Castle.
Yeah, it might have been that
Cake
one.
Defense 2. There's a few like big ones, maybe not as old as the one you're mentioning.
I think mine was back in 1.5.
Ooh, okay, yeah, before my time. I only started because command blocks came. I had redstone, yeah, but the first round of command blocks is when I entered the map making scene, when you could give players who are in a radius some items. That was all I needed.
Pretty sure we had command blocks back in 2013. I think they were added in 1.5, weren't they?
There's a lot more spawners. I can't identify when it was. I don't have a mind for that kind of history.
Fair enough. I can always search it up later, I guess. But yeah, it's been through a lot of changes, certainly.
I think functions are quite wonderful. They're really easy to work with, very malleable. We can finally put them on a versioning system like GitHub. So there's no chance of really losing your work like there was back in the day, where you could run the wrong command and a clone command could send a command block flying off into the void, or you could just erase half of all your work without a backup for many hours. All these things happened. They were very tragic. Many maps have died because of that.
Man. I also remember all those old only one command block things where you press the button and a bunch of them just come falling from the sky, and then they make that little module.
Yeah. We explored that in a map making capacity. It was always a popular gimmick for sharing mechanics, right? That's why it came about. If we think about it today, Wordle kind of is in this tradition. Here's the thing. Here's the sharing the results. It's very shareable for everyone. You can just make it into a one command block filter, which is to say someone made a one command block filter. I think that was either Texel Elf. It was Texel Elf for sure. And Adrian Brightmore, I think, also made one of his own.
What do you mean by filter?
For MC Edit. Yeah, MC Edit was a third-party editing program, and it's written in Python. It was written in Python 3. And so a couple of really popular filter makers were able to essentially create Python scripts for compiling things into a single command block.
Oh, yeah.
Seth Bling had one. Texel Elf, he worked with Texel Elf to do so. And I still think Adrian Brightmore had one, though I'm only half sure. His filters are essentially seen in many Minecraft maps from that era. Any Complete the Monument maps probably have their hands at least in, if not World Edit, then definitely some MC Edit filters.
Nice. Yeah, I remember working with MC Edit. There's one time. Oh yeah, there was this filter called Mapit that I used. Basically converts a PNG to Minecraft maps. And I remember having this whole system where I'd like pretend they were portals. So I'd put a map of what it should look like on the other side. Then I had that through. And it looks really cool. I remember having a subway where I'd have pictures of all the locations. You press the button and then the minecart takes you to the destination. I loved Mapit.
That's so charming.
Yeah. But if you want to do map art and like Minecraft without that stuff, you have to build the whole thing.
Yeah, that's right. These days, I don't know if I could do that. I'm very much a purist in my methodology. If I have a line, personally speaking, of what is supported by Minecraft or Minecraft developers, which is to say almost nothing. Command blocks, almost like semi-official things, right? Command blocks are fully supported, but stuff like custom worlds and data packs not entirely supported right now. Structures and puzzle pieces not totally sorted yet. I wish we could use those, especially the structure blocks and puzzle pieces. I think if map makers had those, they could solve the problem that we've all been trying to solve since we started, which is how do you introduce randomness but also create strategy in your projects? It's the biggest problem of all. Like we all just kind of want to make Minecraft. We're all trying to make Minecraft again inside Minecraft. That experience of your first night, that the energy it gives us. I think we're all just trying to bring that back to the game for us. We want our interpretation of it as map makers.
Yeah, and I guess you've been able to do that more than most because you're actually working on the game.
Yeah, I was very lucky to be able to work on Bastion Remnants for the Nether update.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love that. They had 4 structures. I guess I should explain what Bastion Remnants are, sure.
And why you shouldn't just call them Bastions either.
Yeah. The popular name is Bastions, but if you look in the data, and when you summon one or locate one, it's called Bastion Remnants, because they're not separate bastions. They're part of a larger bastion. Perhaps they're connected in some way. That was always, I think, the fun part of designing it for me, because if we look at a bastion, it's so massive, isn't it? We've never had a structure that big in Minecraft before. And in my mind, it's one piece of a much larger completed bastion, but how big it is, we don't know anymore. It's been eons probably. We don't know how old these are. What we do know is that the Nether fortresses are more intact, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, apart from the bits at the end.
Yeah. But that's not so... They're quite different in how they're represented. And I think that's the thing I really wanted to convey when we were working on Bastions, is the disparity in time and the disparity in erosion. And especially if you're in the Nether, right? This is a lava, heated, hot place with a lot of shifting things. So I think that environmental part of it. So I remember the Nether. My first update for Minecraft was the Nether update. And seeing that new kind of generation, that new kind of world, that underground, I had a lot of ideas in my head of what that would feel like on my skin, what it would be like to walk around here, like how dangerous it would be to be in the Nether. And that kind of thing, that kind of feeling, I think is important when you're creating environments for any game. You don't think about just what is the player doing. You should think about it as an inside out kind of feeling, like, why are these walls here? Why is this part, like, is this part walked on more than this part? How do the people who live here feel? Like, let's look at the there's 4 kinds of Bastion Remnants. Yeah. The first one is the I like to call them the stables, where you keep all the hoglins. Another one is a bit of a house kind of thing. Then we have a gate, a bridge entrance, and a treasure room. And these are all part of the Bastion bigger part, right? But they're ruined now. They're remnants of it.
I remember that some people were complaining that they kind of looked rather box-shaped, but since they're actual remnants, then it kind of makes a lot more sense that they're not just a structure by themselves, they're part of a structure, and the whole structure probably would have had a bit more shape to it. Or maybe not. Yeah. We don't know the architectural decisions of Piglins.
That's right, we don't. And I think that's the fun part, is we got to work with a few people on how to create these structures, and we went with the personality of the Piglins, or at least the Piglins as we might have assumed they might have lived at one point, which were in these giant structures. And now they're kind of run down, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Some kind of big thing hits, some problem happened, surely, I don't know what. And we're kind of left over with a few Piglins who just really like gold. And they're trying to protect what they have left. For me, the most fun one, above and beyond anything else, was the treasure room. Because it's the first time in my mind, that we've had a dungeon that has almost like a purposeful beginning and a purposeful end. If we look at the mansions have fully random rooms. They're kind of laid out nicely. They have a little bit of a pool. If you look at strongholds, they're totally random. If you look at mine shafts, the same kind of deal. Desert temples is a great example of something that is a bit more linear, a bit more of a puzzle box, though, right? I wanted to create a combat puzzle in the same way that we have these more creative puzzles. And for me, that comes down to creating dangerous situations for bold players to make mistakes in. Commitments to what you do.
Yeah, because once you've angered the Piglins, it can be kind of hard to make them stop being suspicious of you.
Yeah, that's right. And they'll chase you everywhere, right? And they'll call their friends, and suddenly there's a lot of twists and turns and corners in all of the Bastion structures. So you actually don't know how many Piglins are around you all the time. We worked on that a lot, creating randomness, but also creating interesting sight lines in the randomness. And if you go back through and you look at our structures now and think about what you can or can't see, then you'll start seeing a little bit more of how we created these things, what we talked about, what we thought about. When you walk into a treasure room, what are you seeing? What's your options? When you go into a stable, from any, like looking through the gate has a lot of really interesting little hidden nooks and crannies that I thought about how Piglins would walk. Where would they go? Where would they hide their side staircases? If they were trying to defend that gate, what would they do with it? So when you go back and view this again at some point, think about that. Like, if I were to attack this, where would the defenses be? And we thought about that for all the Bastion remnant structures.
Interesting. There's also, of course, like, it being so decrepit also plays a role, because, you know, you might fall through the holes. I can say I've done that lots of times.
Excellent. I really like to hear that. I've killed a hardcore player with Bastion Remnants, and I'm very happy about that. At least one I know of. I wanted that holes. I wanted the not only should you run away, but you'll have to jump over things. You'll have to look where you're going. And if you don't, then maybe you get caught out. Maybe you'll have to deal with a different kind of situation. It wasn't about making it impossible for the players. It was challenging them to either securely go in or be really good at navigating and parkouring to get out.
Yeah, I tend to take the more cautious approach when I'm going to Bastion Remnants, especially like whenever I see one, I just try and do it. So like even if I've just gotten into the nether, I might only have iron gear, and I might just like go in there and say, okay, how am I going to handle this? Okay, I'm probably going to take out those ones first, or I might go around looking for brutes first and then lead them away and deal with them first.
Nice, that's a good strategy. I wanted to talk about the bottom of the treasure room, which is why I brought it up. That's the part I'm so excited about. It's so different than other structures, other dungeons we have because of how the lava is set up. And I set up that lava because of the magma slimes.
Ah, yes.
I thought it was really interesting to have magma slimes going over lava, but then being able to get up on those 1 blocks and jumping very far all of a sudden. It created a very chaotic environment for you to try to get in and get out.
Oh, whenever I'm down there, I'm just swamped with endless amounts of them. Okay, all right, I've killed you. And the thing about magma cubes is that like even the smallest ones deal damage, so you still have to take care of them, whereas slimes don't.
Exactly.
Also interesting is that they've actually got an actual spawner block, and that's the first time we've had a new spawner block for probably ages. Last time probably would have been strongholds, because that's when they added the silverfish spawner. And then previous, like for example with pillager outposts, then we've just got like pillagers naturally spawning with the structures. Same with ocean monuments to the guardians spawning. There isn't any spawner block. There's just the structure defined.
That was very important to me. I remember when we were thinking about it. Maybe I never shared it with my collaborators, which were Corey Kojo, first off, was the primary person who asked me to help. Johan Aronson, who was one of the art directors, or the art director for Minecraft, excuse me. Art lead? Yes, art lead. Titles are really hard for me. So Johan, if you're listening to this, I'm so sorry. I respect you so much. Thank you. Max Herdgren, and a few others who we all helped bring this thing out and think about what we wanted to make. And for me, once I heard the word dungeon, I thought about the original dungeon, the zombie dungeon. I thought about the stronghold. At some point, if we're going to think about it like a dungeon, I was very happy to think there should be a spawner at the end of it. You get there, you finally find one, and you should feel like, oh, what's this? This for me, a spawner means almost like a boss fight. A little bit, not really. A mini boss fight, let's say it like that. That'll be easier.
Maybe like a raid or something.
Yeah, a raid, a difficult fight, at least at the end of something that already felt, in my mind, quite epic because they're so overbearing.
Yeah, I remember. It's even if I'm just doing a test world, or if I'm not expecting to be in a world for long, I still just refuse to mine that spawner. Like, unless they're cave spider spawners, because those things, like, are deadly. Like, unless they're cave spider spawners, I will just, like, refuse to mine a thing, because I'm like, oh, well, I might make a farm later, even though I, like, refuse to make any farms. It just, the fragility of it, I'm just like, no, I don't want to destroy it, because it used to be there, and now it's not, and I can't get it back.
I totally understand that feeling. And I hope to have created enough little spaces and such that magma cubes kept spawning, even though you were trying to protect it. And people, they fell for it. They kept dying. Oh, it was so lovely. That's exactly what I wanted.
Nice.
When you target a player's avarice, then they will inevitably fall into a trap at least once.
What do you mean by avarice?
Yeah, avarice is like a greed, extra greed, like an unending greediness. You just want a little more treasure, just a little more treasure. And this is avarice is usually what happens in Dungeons and Dragons. What happened to the mimics, if I remember my lore correctly. I could be misquoting here, but the mimics target adventurers who are too greedy, don't they?
Yeah, and it's quite interesting because, like, it's almost like we're starting to become like the piglins among us, where we're just like getting more greedy and greedy, just reflecting them going, oh, gold, you know? And it makes you think about society.
Yeah, we do live in a society. Huh?
We sure do. So do the piglins.
How about
that? Something else I remember is initially people were just mining below the chest and getting the hoppers, because of course the piglins don't care about hoppers. They do care about shulker boxes though, I think, which is interesting that they know what shulker boxes are. But people are building hoppers below and then like getting all the contents from there, and then you put gilded blackstone beneath it.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. There's a couple things here. So hoppers, we talked about this as a development group because it was seen as a workaround of our intended experience. Now, if you're a level designer or a map maker, game designer of any kind, the intended experience is not necessarily what the player desires is fun, but you're guiding them on an emotional journey to whatever it is. Sometimes that's just fierce competitiveness to win, or feeling some kind of strain or grind, or just joy. If you see a bunny hop around a corner, that's wonderful. And for us, the intended experience for Bastion's Remnants was to have a really difficult combat experience where players didn't feel like they need to dig through walls. In fact, they didn't feel like it was too good to dig through walls. So, and we wanted them to open the chest so the piglins would get upset, right? We've created these mechanics. We think it's fun to engage with them. In my mind, that part right there is the most important part of understanding the difference between Minecraft and other video games. Minecraft primarily honors creativity. It demands it of you. You are creative in almost everything you do. And to take that away from a player to say, you thought of using a hopper? Cool. Is adverse to what really the game's about. And I think that's so important to remember, is that we're not so much creating a perfect experience, we're creating a sandbox survival game. And players should be able, and they should be allowed and encouraged to attack problems in whatever way they should, and feel they feel confident in doing. And this is now just my personal opinion. I won't speak for Mojang, but in my opinion, if we're unable to account for that many different kinds of creative players and create interesting situations for them, that's our problem. That's not a player problem. So that's what Hoppers is about. Had you ever imagined it'd be like that?
Yeah, definitely. It should be like lots of different ways to attack a problem. I guess the problem just is when some of those ways are too easy or too boring, or deviate from the intended experience. Because we got to remember that like games primarily serve to give you an experience. They don't serve to like hand the player everything on a plate or whatever. Like the player doesn't exist to be served. The player is just one thing in a world. I mean, technically they created the world because the world is on a computer, but like you want to give that feeling that the world is somewhat independent and that the player shouldn't find everything like too convenient, right?
Absolutely.
Like I guess you could technically, I believe gilded blackstone is pushable by pistons. So what you could do is you could probably get a piston to push it out of the way and then put the hopper. So like you can still do that, but it takes a little more thought. And I think that's good because like it's a creative solution, but it's even more creative than just placing a hopper. You know, you got to know a little bit more about redstone, or you got to think of this stuff.
You might be looking down too much on what everyone might not be aware of what a hopper is or how it's used. And I think that's the fun part. Is we're very technically minded players, you and I, of course, and maybe a lot of people listening to this podcast. The average player maybe has never even tried to place down redstone or has never tried to make a hopper. They don't understand the necessary, how convenient it can be. And then we make another logical leap that you should take hoppers with you on adventures. And if you have hoppers on you on an adventure, then you come across something for the first time because maybe you're not the kind of person who looks too deeply into spoilers or into how enemies work. You'd like to observe these things. That would be fun. And then we have to assume they see a chest. They have already understood that piglins get angry when they open chests. And then we also have to assume they know about the Gilded Blackstone. And when you start laying out all these assumptions, I think the argument of creativity kind of ruining an intended experience starts to fall apart quite a bit. We can't think about just the full experience, like a fully technically perfect expert Minecraft player. I think it's way more logical to think about this person's on an adventure. They didn't really bring any important items with them. Their armor, their mining tools, their food. We have to think about it in that kind of term, yeah?
Yeah.
Not so much the metagaming aspect of it all.
I do think about these things, but like when I'm playing, I'm more of a casual player. Like, as I said before, like I will just refuse to build farms because I don't find that interesting. So, yeah, I get what you mean. And also, yeah, we just need to remember, like, there's a lot of people in the Minecraft community that are really good at this stuff, and their like techniques and methods tend to spread around. But like, of course, there's a lot of people playing Minecraft that aren't active in the community, and we also got to cater to those people.
Absolutely, and almost primarily, I think complexity can always be added, but simplicity is always at the most core of the most elegant way to do things. And it's really hard to kind of flesh out when you think about every item affecting every single other item in the game, or every block being placed against other blocks. There's the complexity can be endless, and the exploits can always be found. And if you think of it like that, then it's almost freeing to kind of let yourself go and not have to cover everything and not have to make everything so linear.
Yeah.
As far as not so much just the level layout, but how a player approaches something.
Definitely, because like the primary aspect in Minecraft, like with structures, what makes them different from other games is that you can mine through basically everything. Really, the only exception is that when you have mining fatigue, I mean, you can use axolotls and milk to get rid of that. So even there's exceptions to those ones. So like I remember last time I mined through a bastion to try and get to this place that I wasn't sure if I'd explored or not. I ended up dying due to lava that was hidden in the walls or something. So there's a lot of different ways to discourage players from just like taking the easy way out, I guess.
Or conversely, create challenge for different kinds of players. It's more like that, I think. And we think about that a lot. The analogy I've been using for years upon years upon years is we have grass on top, yeah? What's below the grass? What's below the dirt? What's below the stone? Why what is in the walls when we look at the walls of our house, really, right? There's the drywall, the wallpaper, the insulation, the like there's all these frames and all these infrastructure on top of just what you see on the surface level. And I believe if we continue creating our structures with that in mind, we're going to really unlock a whole wealth of potential while still making it feel procedurally generated, randomly generated, Minecrafty.
Nice. Yeah, I've been thinking a bit about that sort of thing too. Not as in depth, of course, because I'm merely a fledgling. But yeah, I came up with a few ideas of how to like make it so that mining through structures is kind of a different challenge, but still like not the easy way out when compared to like doing it as intended. I guess like with nether fortresses, there's not much point to mining through the walls because everything's quite open and like everything's also quite far away, so it's just easier to use the corridors.
Convenience is a great motivator. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then you could have like explosive blocks in the walls, or I had one where you like put observers behind the walls, and if you mine it and the observer like uncovers a spawner and a bunch of mobs come out and punish you.
That's some classic complete the monument design right there. I've been victim to both of those situations you've described.
Nice.
I think of Vetch's map and Amlup's maps, which are I think uncharted territories.
Nice.
Very great classic projects to go through.
I want to look through that. It's quite interesting that I came up with a similar solution though.
Minecraft, the worst one I've ever seen, and this one's from Amlup as well. And now that I've said it, you might be on the lookout on it if you ever play any of his projects. He likes to set one block of the world to a nether biome and place that bed in that exact block.
Is the biome the thing that makes it explode, not the dimension?
It used to be the biome. I think now it's the dimension. But it was the biome before. So I experienced that firsthand and lost all my items because, of course, the floor had a place to fall into the lava. Of course it does.
That's amazing.
So I took that concept and I said, hey, Calamity, you're a nether map now. Here's beds.
Oh my goodness.
We're using beds as explosions now. Go forth and blow things up.
Nice. I hear some people use respawn anchors in the overworld as mining devices in like creativity. In creative mode, because they're slightly bigger explosion.
I haven't heard of that one yet, but that's an interesting thing.
I saw
I have to think about that.
I think I saw Etho do it when in the intentional game design live stream that Ulraf did like a year and a half ago. Yeah, where he was talking about archaeology and things. I'm actually really excited for like how archaeology can complement structures, because it's kind of another one of those decisions you have to make with the spawners. Like, do I brush this carefully and get the artifact, or do I dig through it so I can like disable a spawner, or deal with a mob, or avoid the warden, avoid making too much noise for the warden to hear me? Stuff like that. I feel like it could really complement it.
Absolutely. Anything that makes the player feel like they have something to value as they move through an area, and where they don't have to be in Dungeons and Dragons, they call it a murder hobo. Just go forward and give me the fight, and I'll kill anything I see, anyone, anywhere. It doesn't matter. I don't really care about the story. I don't really care about anything here. Just kill. And when you introduce something like this, there's precious things here. We have to be careful in how we move, how we kill, who we kill, and how we do it. The players will, and especially in a sandbox game, I think this is one of the best ways to motivate players to play differently, try different things.
Definitely, in case, like especially since Minecraft's combat is like relatively simple on the surface when compared to other games, it makes sense to kind of explore different things instead of just having every encounter be a combat encounter. And that's also where I'm really excited for the warden.
What's the most effective combat item for you?
Well, there was one time when I was playing Bedrock, and the first round I killed gave me a trident, so that was pretty good. And I don't think Bedrock had shields yet, so I used trident as my primary weapon for a while.
Dang.
I used to use axes, and then I realized that like swords were good enough to have like a good rhythm between hit and shield for a skeleton. So I rarely just use swords now.
That's not so bad.
Yeah, I don't think too much about combat.
For me, it was a trick question. For me, the blocks are the most effective combat tool.
Oh yeah.
What else is negating damage entirely?
Fair enough.
What else helps you with the most repositioning? And yeah, okay, I was a little foolish for playing a trick on you. I'm sorry, but
Nah, it's all good. Yeah. I mean, I use blocks to, like, make the wither skeletons bump their heads. Like, once I found out about that, like, my Nether Fortress experience was changed. Like, I was like, cool, all right. I'll just, like, put a low ceiling everywhere, and they'll bump their heads. Because, like, before that, wither skeletons were absolutely terrifying.
Absolutely. Always scary to fight.
Big thing coming towards you with a sword, and it knows that it's going to poison you, but, like, it can still kill you. Like, it's different from a witch as well. Whenever I see a witch, I just take it out immediately. If I get poisoned, I just wall myself in until the poison's gone away. And then I just eat to get my health back up. But with the skeletons, they are just... I will just avoid them wherever possible.
I like them as like a ascended enemy type of figure. They are quite deadly. I like them as much as I like strays. I hope someday I get to be able to design something that uses the custom arrow mobs more.
Yeah.
I think the stray and the I forget the hungering one of the desert.
Husk?
The husk and the strays I think are so much fun. And that's it. I hope someday I get to be able to do that. I think that would be a good deal of fun.
Frostburn update 2.0 confirmed.
Oh, dreams are dreams, you know. It's okay to dream.
Yeah. Something, speaking with the skeletons, with their spawning, like, that's another one tied to structures. And I remember, I think King B-Dogs was saying, like, ages ago that he doesn't like it, that, like, they're tied to structures, because even when you mine out the whole thing, like, it's still, they can still spawn. And I guess that's good for farms, but it's also not good if you want to domesticate a fortress or something like that. What are your thoughts on that?
I think things have changed a lot since we've changed how lighting works and mob spawning works. I think it's way more feasible these days to secure any location, even if you've mined it all out. If you wanted to create a perimeter or just a void or however you like, you just have to have at least a light level of 1. And that is such a higher quality of life for domesticating these kinds of structures than it ever has been before.
Yeah, that is a very elegant fix. It's such an old thing as well. I wonder why it was originally 7. I guess that was when Minecraft was more like a survival game, but...
Still is like a survival game, isn't it?
Yeah, but like before it was like more primarily focused on that, I think. At least all the nostalgia bros say so.
I have no idea what the nostalgia bro says. I live in the present. I think what the biggest thing to remember from back then is, they just can't have to come up with some ideas, right? There was not a lot of foresight or thought into why an idea might have gone into Minecraft. There was a good deal of planning, a good deal of good execution. But for something as basic as mob spawn in the dark, 7 was probably a matter of tuning and iteration at that point. Now we have a bigger world. We have more places creatures can spawn, more dangerous places, like the giant caves we have. So now when we look at retuning something, it's for today. It's not a matter of what came before. It's what's best for this current version of the game.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I can agree with you that Minecraft was more focused on survival before. I think we have so much more survival options than we ever had. It's a wide variety. What I think maybe you're trying to say is there was a more stringent requirements for staying alive than there is now.
Yeah, that's in essence what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. And that difference is really key. I don't mind a game. See, if I say it like I don't mind a game being easier, that's a bait. Shouldn't say it like that. What I should say is I think having a game having way more options creates a pseudo sense of this game is now easy, when really this game is is solvable by more people. More people can think of their own version of dealing with something. So those who felt like, oh, this was so hard before because I had to figure it out, and now they have this and they can think about it and they survive this way. It's kind of like it's not that good of a feeling, in my opinion. Not a great opinion to hold as far as, was it more difficult back then? Yeah, probably. It's also more vast and more deep and difficult in different ways now. More more nuanced, fleshed out.
Definitely, yeah. I remember people talking a lot about the first night. I think you even mentioned it earlier, as this like quintessential Minecraft experience. Meanwhile, my first night was probably, I think I was sitting in a McDonald's on my dad's phone. I'd just gotten Minecraft. The sun was like coming through the window, so I could barely see anything. And then this like frowning green thing comes up to me, and there's no sprinting, so I can't like get rid of it.
Right.
And it's just following me and following me. I'm like, well, I guess I can't do anything else. So I just went closer to it and blew up and died. So I don't really have first-hand experience of what a first night is like.
I think that's an interesting way. When I say first night, I think about how many possibilities I felt in the world, and I was here in my little cave hole, you know, or my little house, or whatever I had found, my shelter for the time. Okay. My first experience of Minecraft was actually watching a YouTuber go into their hidey hole and explain this is how you live during the evening, and I remember thinking, nah, I'll wander the forest. I'll go out there. I'm not scared like you. What are you doing? You're telling me you're going to spend 5-10 minutes hiding in a hole? And yet, everyone I talk to who doesn't come from the YouTube community, who's just coming to Minecraft in a new way, they have this similar first night experience when they deal with mobs. It's scary. The sounds are scary. The sounds are so horrifying if you've never even played a video game before. You don't want to die. You don't know what death means in Minecraft. And even if you do, you realize, I don't want to lose my items. I'm never going to find this place again. Mm-hmm. The fear is what makes the first night. And it comes in all these different ways, doesn't it? Like, it's really more of a nebulous concept than a really strict, yeah, after 20 minutes, you're going to be scared. There's so much more meaning to it in my mind. It's a way of life almost. It's initiation in some kind of way.
Yeah, death is really punishing in Minecraft. I remember after that, I think I was about 12 at the time, and like I would just play Minecraft on peaceful mode the entire time because I just did not want to lose anything. Also, touch controls weren't my forte, so I decided not to risk combat or anything. Did die to cacti a few times though.
Ooh, to cacti a few times.
Yeah, and I'd like gotten 2 stacks of wooden planks as well, and they all fell into the cacti. I was heartbroken. You know, it took me ages to do that. That was on touch controls. I only had 30 minutes of screen time a day.
I have trained myself because I started working on the marketplace, right, for Bedrock. So I'm well versed in how to use touch controls, to use the controller, and how to use mouse and keyboard. I have even put a little bit of time into learning how to use the eye tracker mod that we've had seen for a Minecraft Java edition. So I've played Minecraft just a little bit, not a long time, just a little bit with my eyes only, and in VR as well. So I would say I'm fairly well versed on all the feeling of controlling a Minecraft character.
How does eye tracker work?
It's a mod. So you have a menu of things you can do at the bottom, and then you can look at it and you activate it however you would for your accessibility situation. In my case, I just tapped a button, and then you look at where you want to place the block, and then you tap a button. So it's mainly acting as your mouse in a very interesting way.
Okay.
And you might think, oh no, I wouldn't be able to do everything I can do now while using an eye tracker. Of course not. But people don't play Minecraft like we would if they're using an eye tracker, right? There is different requirements for them to have the same level of enjoyment. But the output, the titillation factor of it, right? The first night with an eye tracker is a different kind of scary. You play it in a different way to hedge your bets, or you play in peaceful, however you'd like, really.
Now I want to try that.
It's very fun.
Looking at the points that we've got there, are there any others that you want to expand on?
Let's talk a little bit about the roles of structures, or the structure iteration, I think, is really important.
Okay.
And I'd like to convey that and talk a little bit about how we do this. So for the Bastion Remnants, and so much for the Deep Dark, what was really important was coming up with a concept that you could convey to several people. And we worked hard to share our vision with each other. So why do this? Why come up with a concept? If you're working alone, you have a vision in your head of how this thing should exactly look. And even if you don't, you have a rough idea, you have a sketch, and then you start refining that sketch by adding the half steps, the stairs, the different designs, the different colors, and wherever you want to put things. And you can just move forward. You can just build with whatever is in your head. If you're working with several people, someone who needs to do the art, someone who needs to make textures, someone like me needs to make the environment, the level, essentially, and someone who says, this is what the entities, the piglins are going to be like. What would be an interesting environment for them to be in? All of that requires a central concept to hold true and be well communicated to everyone. So when we talk about doing concept art first, and then doing a prototype, and then a vertical slice, and then getting something out that is essentially finished, and then iterating and iterating and iterating until it's done, what we're really talking about is how we work together as a bigger group, how we share ideas. And that's really the key. If you want to lead a team and want to do a project at big scale, not just a single one-off dungeon, or not just something that takes one person to do, but would take 10, 15 people to do within a year, to make it reasonable. Otherwise, you're going to be doing it for 10 or 15 years. That's a really bad analogy. That's not a one-to-one relation. You can take 15 people and probably do it for 5 years and still not have the right progress if you do it wrong.
Yeah, you need a lot of different communication.
Exactly. And sketches and diagrams and expansive descriptions of not only what the piglins are like, how they behave, but also how they should feel to the player. And piglins should feel a little playful. They should feel like they're not so concerned with you unless you upset them, because that's how they behave in the game, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like bartering with them just because they make those little sounds. I'm like, oh, you're welcome.
Yes, they're so cute. So if we have this kind of hangout area, as well as having something that is precious to them strewn around the environment, that's almost like it sounds so obvious to when you say it in 2020 hindsight, but that's something we had to think about. The Bastion Remnants aren't just a dangerous location. They can be quite passive if the player plays it in the right way. So that colors how we looked at it, how we designed it, how we conceptualized, what is this? This is part their home. This is part kind of a dungeon, a little bit. There's stuff to find here and stuff to pilfer and steal and take away. Those feelings are need to be actively prodded by the level. And one of those ways is, what is a safe area? What is a more dangerous area? There's lots of dangerous areas in the Bastions, but if you get on top of a wall, you get in a certain location, it's lots of safe areas too, especially if you're wearing gold armor. You can observe, you can consider. And all of that was kind of built into the DNA of Bastion Remnants.
Something I find interesting is that Piglin Brutes are only added in later, so that kind of like changed the experience that most people were getting from 1.16 to 1.16.2?
It was always intended for the Piglin brutes to be there, so we left space for them. This is part of what happens in a production flow, right? We have to make hard decisions. We have to sometimes make cuts. We have to figure out, yes, we can't deliver the full experience now, but we can later, so let's make sure we leave room for that to come in. And for me, the Piglin brutes were always meant to be guarding the door to the treasure room. And that's why the lava pools are the way they are between the wall and the actual treasure area. Isn't that wild? Like as far as like design for the Bastion goes, that part is, I bet, confusing for some people who are trying to decipher what we're telling here. Why have these pools of lava there? Why have like little walkways next to them? You'll see when you check out the treasure room next time.
Nice.
I love that area because it's so, it means something to me, and I figured out exactly what it means, but that's for me, you know? That's for me. You don't need to find out about that. You just need to fall in the lava. The key part is then taking our idea and putting it into a visual form as soon as possible. Because you can conceptualize, but if you haven't drawn it, if you haven't built it, if you haven't built some part of it so you can experience it, there's no way to iterate. All you have is a really cool idea and nothing tangible to work with. It's like planning, how can I say this it's like planning a woodworking project just by starting and seeing where you go. It's never going to work. You want to get somewhere. You might cut out a key piece if you don't understand where you need to be. So what we did right after that, the key part of it is we created the first Bastion Remnant, and we laid it all out in a very basic, very flat, very ugly looking thing. And then we said, this is kind of what it's like. Oh, not this size, make it bigger, make it smaller. What else are you adding? There's follow-up questions you have that people will give you that then need to be answered. And then suddenly you're having a conversation. And that's why it's so key to go from a concept to something tangible, a vertical slice, or a first prototype is probably a better way to say it. A vertical slice will come after, which is a small amount of the full experience, is what a vertical slice is.
Okay, yeah, because I guess that means like other people, and also you can like get a greater idea of like what your idea means.
Exactly, and how it has an impact on gameplay. How do piglins behave here? One of the biggest things is, how do piglins go up and down stairs without falling down? So we made really good affordances, and we made observations for the pathfinding for piglins, just to make sure they're not going to be super derpy and fall off in ways that either aren't funny or just kind of look too ridiculous.
Are you sure you live here?
You've been up those stairs before, surely.
Yeah.
Finally, the after you go through and you get your first prototype, what we did, we broke them down into structures. So we built the whole Bastion Remnant, and then we started talking about, we built it bespoke. So this is a AAA terminology. This is a unique asset. It's not generated. It's not meant to be procedurally in any way. It's just a one-off asset. So if you take this to a Minecraft build, I made the build, but we could never generate the build. So we started breaking it down into different parts, and we started thinking about how could we piece this together, and how could we create more procedurally generated things, and how could we make it seem like different every time, but still have the same larger groupings of experience. And that's a concept that I think came from, for me at least, from Derek Yu's book, Spelunky, where he talks about how to create procedurally generated platforming levels that still have some coherence of difficulty rising. And what he did was take a larger section and create smaller pools of things within that section that were generally the same, but the entrance and exit would always kind of roughly be the same kind of experience. So that's where we created randomness and made it more Minecrafty and more procedure.
Interesting. I'll have to read that book. Right. Anything else you want to talk about? Because we've been going for almost an hour, I think.
I'm very happy to have been here. Thank you so much for speaking with me.
No, thank you. It's been cool to talk to another Mojang developer, especially with something that's going on my YouTube channel. Cool. So you're good with me doing the outro now?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Cool. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, let us know by leaving a like or become a YouTube member like Yal, Alethris, and Levantino have. There will be more episodes of this podcast series later on, so if those interest you, subscribe and hit the bell, and soon they should be up for you to enjoy. Moesh, do you have anything you want to plug?
Yeah, subscribe to this podcast. I think it'll be really nice. Keep a lookout for the next update that we're working on in Minecraft. Some new structures are going to be coming your way. And I'm very, very, very excited that I have a chance to work on those a little bit.
Oh, I'm just so hyped for the Deep Dark Cities. And the Warden. I just want to experience all that stuff. I'm thinking that I might do a stream with it where I'm just like completely in the dark, maybe quite late at night, so I just get that full horror experience, you know?
So spooky. So spooky.
Yep, face cam and everything.
It's too spooky for me.
All right. Well, I think that about does it. So thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I think we will leave it there. So see you, everyone.
Cheers.